Okay, let's start, I think. In the name of the German Uruguayan Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar, German Technology Solutions, Trends and Developments in the E-Mobility sector. E-mobility is an important part of the solution towards a decarbonized future, especially in Uruguay, where around 97% of the generated energy is already green, and the transport sector accounts for the biggest CO2 emissions, and over 90% of the population lives in urban areas. Moving towards sustainable mobility solutions in the form of electric mobility is key to reach net zero. Being in conversations with automotive countries like Germany and learning from their trends, developments, and challenges can bring interesting insights and possibilities to exchange knowledge and experiences. With that in mind, we started the webinar series German Technology Solutions last year in September. Today, I'm honored to welcome Stefanie Wolff, Program Manager Electromobility at the National Organization for Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Technologies now GmbH, who will give us a presentation about electromobility in Germany and its current trends, developments, and challenges. The presentation will be followed by a deeper discussion about the advances in Germany and Uruguay, for which we are pleased to welcome Ariel Alvarez, coordinator of MOVES, a GEF project of UNDP and the Ministries of Industry and Energy, Environment, Housing, and Territorial Planning. I encourage you all to post all questions you might have in the chat so that we can discuss them during our conversation after this presentation. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the word to Stefanie and wish you all an interesting webinar.
Thank you so much, Franziska. Hello from Berlin, Germany. I'm very happy to speak in Uruguay today. I wish I could be there, traveling to South America, maybe in the near future. So I brought a few slides, and I would like to talk about the funding strategy of Germany in the framework of the European Union with respect to electric mobility, especially for passenger vehicles, that I will talk about all the funding programs that we have. So yeah, I have a PhD in energy economics, so I'm an economist with a specialization in battery electric mobility. I can talk also a bit about hydrogen mobility. So I brought 4 topics that take about 20 minutes. I could talk ages about these 4 topics. So first, I would like to take you into the environmental policy instruments that we have in Germany and in Europe. Then I will talk about the company I'm working for, NOW GmbH. And then I will show you the status of the electric mobility in Germany. And I will give you a short glimpse into the development of battery sizes on German roads. So let's start with the environmental policy instruments, since I'm an economist and these are my tools. So in Germany, transport is responsible for 1/3 of final energy consumption. I brought you this slide because I know that in Uruguay, the energy consumption looks a bit different. So Germany relies heavily still on fossil fuels. Only a small part is renewable electricity from renewable sources. It's growing each year, but still the most is fossil fuels, to say that. And the next slide shows you also another problem. So here you can see the emissions of the transport sector in the past 30 years, from 1919 to 2021. And you see the red line didn't move at all. So emissions are stagnating in the last 30 years. And our goals are, the German goals are to reduce these emissions by 50%. So coming from here to 85 million tons of CO2 emissions by 2030, so in the next 8 years. 8 years. We have 8 years to halve our emissions. And you can see quite nicely here in this graphs. Let me just switch on my my red pen. It's a comment. Spotlight here it is. So now I can show you with my spotlight. So here in 2007, we have a slight decrease in the emissions because of the financial crisis. And in 2017, here 14, this is the so-called Dieselgate. And of course, this drop is the pandemic. But still, we need to reach those goals, and we want to be climate neutral by 2045. We have 3 options to reduce this. Of course, we have more options, but my company works for these 3 options. So we can use renewable fuels, hydrogen, and electric mobility. And for electric mobility, the German government has set its goal to have 15 million passenger cars, battery electric passenger cars, by 2030 on the roads. Still, it's 8 years. In 8 years, right now, today we have around 1.5 million battery electric cars and also hybrid electric cars on the road. So let's say electric vehicles is battery electric vehicles plus hybrid electric vehicles. So 1.5 million, and we need the tenfold of this in 8 years. This is the goal I'm working for. How can we reach these goals? We have policy instruments on hand, 3 policy instruments: command and control instruments, instruments of moral suasion, and of course, economic instruments. What does it mean? So command and control instruments, of course, are emissions performance standards we have in Europe, technical standards, for example, the Clean Vehicle Directive or the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Regulation, and input and output restrictions such as the European emission trading system. And in Europe, we also have low emission zones, so where in inner city districts, only low emission vehicles are allowed to enter these city districts. You may ask yourself, what are instruments of moral suasion? These are instruments such as labels and nudges. For example, energy efficiency labels. We have them on refrigerators, but also on cars. And also at fuel stations, they tell you the energy efficiency of the fuels. And these instruments are there to slightly nudge you into the right direction to consume less energy intensive products. And lastly, of course, the economic instruments, which are subsidies. So in Germany, we have purchase subsidies for battery electric cars. We have fleet exchange programs where complete fleets can be exchanged. We have charges and taxes. We have eco-tax, and we have an orientation of the car taxes on the CO2 emission intensity of the car. And of course, again, we have tradable permits. We also have a national emission trading system. So there's the European ETS, but also we have a national trading system where companies can trade CO2 certificates with each other. So these are the framework, the policy framework we are dealing in. And in the next couple of minutes, I will talk about this part, subsidies and funding programs. These, I'm sorry, this is in German and it's too small to read it. These are all the laws and regulations in place in Germany with respect to electric mobility. So on the left-hand side, we have all the European legislation, and on the right-hand side and on the bottom, we have the German regulation. This is national law, this is municipalities, and this is federal federal level. And on the next slide, you can't read the next slide, but these are all the laws and regulations in place. And it's basically so easy to put all this together to have this framework. And this is one of the tasks that NOW does, the company I'm working for does. So I'm sorry this is in German, we also have an English version. But coming now to what I'm doing, who I'm working for actually. So I'm working for a company that belongs to the Federal Ministry of Transport in Germany. We are kind of a think tank or agency whose task it is to coordinate funding programs for the transport sector in Germany. And when we talk about transport sector, we also have to talk about the related infrastructures, charging infrastructures and refueling infrastructures. So the portfolio you can see on this slide are all the different funding programs that we coordinate and that we also created. So we were founded on the base of hydrogen and fuel cell technology. And this is also still in our name. NOW stands for Nationale Organisation Wasserstoff- und Brennstoffzellentechnologie. So the abbreviation stands for fuel cell technology, hydrogen and fuel cell technology. So this is where we come from. And the next funding program, which was founded 10 years ago, was the Electromobility on Site. And I'm going to talk about this in the next couple of minutes. But in addition to this, we also founded a center for the implementation of charging infrastructures. I'm going also to talk about this. And then we have many, many more other funding programs, mobility and fuel strategy. We have also a promotion of commercial vehicles with alternative drives. We also deal with renewable fuels, especially for shipping and aviation. This is also quite interesting for you. This is a national network of competencies. This is a special network, a special platform for cities and municipalities where they can exchange ideas and what are your barriers? How are you dealing with this? Also very interesting. Then we have a program that improves mobility in rural areas. And we have a program that digitalizes the local transport system. And we also have a program which initiates the export of environmental technologies, for example, electricity generation technologies in developing countries. And these are funding projects. So you see, we have all kinds of drivetrain technologies and all kinds of transport modes. So everything that drives on the roads, rail, buses, trucks, ships, and planes. With all kinds of propulsion technology, we have funding programs for if they are sustainable. So this is where we come from. And these are the three pillars of our funding programs. And this is the funding program of electromobility, but the other programs are very similar. So I'm going to explain each of these three pillars now. And you can keep in mind that we have this for all kinds of technologies. So on the left-hand side, you can see that we have the funding program for the procurement and purchase of electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure you need to drive the car. For example, you can send a proposal to buy one car and one charging infrastructure, or one battery electric car, two battery electric cars and 2 charging points. And here the target group is municipalities, fleets, and commercial fleets. So there's a city who has a garbage collection, who has gardening services, and postal deliveries. And we found all those fleets. So you can electrify all the vehicle types. In the middle, you see R&D. We support universities and research institutions with their research ideas on electric mobility. So we support the market ramp up. Market ramp up in Germany is already there. So now we have to go into operating concepts, for example, using car sharing concepts. But also there needs to be a lot of research done on technologies, the network and communication technologies regarding the charging infrastructure across whole Europe. So there's still a lot of need in R&D funding. On the right-hand side, the last pillar are concepts and consulting. This is the theoretical pillar. So here we fund theoretical ideas where a community, a municipality or a company first needs to analyze its fleet. So how many cars do I have? What is the range? How many people are driving? Can I have one car instead of two cars? So this is theoretical concepts and feasibility studies. Feasibility studies on the topics such as charging infrastructure and the electrification of the fleets. So nothing is being purchased or installed in this pillar. It's only theoretical feasibility study. So these are the three pillars we have in our funding programs that are similar in all the funding programs. And I really like the next slide because it shows a road, our roadmap of funding. On the left-hand side, you can see the technology-specific funding programs, and on the right-hand side, the cross-technology. So let's start on the left. This is the funding program I'm working for, electric mobility. These are the three pillars I explained to you. So we have procurement, the concepts, and the R&D. For the charging infrastructure, I'm going to show you on the next slide as well. We have funding programs for public charging and non-public charging, and wall boxes, which is also private charging. And the same goes for hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. We have purchase subsidies for the infrastructure and for R&D. On the right-hand side, we have the cross-technology, which means commercial vehicles like the garbage collectors, the gardening personnel, and also heavy-duty commercial vehicles. So here we also have the purchase subsidies and feasibility studies. The same goes for buses. By buses, you have to analyze the routes, you have to optimize the route planning, and the same goes for rail vehicles. And on the next slide is a special slide for charging infrastructure. Here we differentiate between non-public and public charging. So on the left-hand side is non-public charging and private and professional. So at work, it's at home and at work charging. And on the right-hand side is the public charging, which is urban in the city or interregional on highways. And here you see for the first time on my slides, you see some numbers. How high is the budget that we have for this? So what we have here is charging points for electric cars at residential buildings. So this is for private car owners. And this is for fleet applications at work parking. And on the right-hand side, we have customer car parks. So this is at the supermarket. We have street space, charging infrastructure funding, and we also plan charging hubs. So this is kind of in a city center where we have a hub, for example, at a train station, where there are many transport mode users like bicycles, electric scooters, and of course cars and buses who can charge at the same point. And of course, lastly, we have the charging hub at interregional access on the German highways or the European highways. Okay, and we match the demand and supply of charging infrastructures using different tools, where the demand is tracked. So we get the demand, we need charging infrastructure here, and also the supply, where we can see where are there actually the areas where we can put up charging infrastructures, where is a car park or a supermarket where we can install charging infrastructures. And we also offer a tool for e-learning for municipalities. I brought you this slide. Again, it's in German. It's just a mental help for me to mention all this that we offer. So on the one hand, we offer all these funding programs, subsidy programs. On the other hand, we offer many opportunities that all the actors in this system can connect. So who are the actors? The actors are the car manufacturers, the cities, the municipalities, the energy providers, and we don't really target private consumers. We have other funding programs for this, but these are all the actions and platforms where people can meet and discuss. We have a homepage called Standardization Electric Mobility, which is the first point of information to inform yourself about electric mobility, and it's divided into commercial and communal, municipal level, because they have different funding programs. We have a very good newsletter. This is the network for the platform where only cities and municipalities can meet and discuss the problems and barriers of electric mobility in their region. We publish many fact sheets, for example, on the security of battery electric vehicle, or also resource efficiency of battery cars. The roadshow Electric Mobility is where we travel through the whole of Germany and go to, for example, city festivals. And we go there with our cars. We have electric and hydrogen cars, and we go there and show to the public that electric mobility is possible. And we also let people drive the cars, a short test round in the area, and we explain a lot. And so we are just open to the public and get in touch with the general public. We collect a lot of data, which we then funnel and spread out in the form of fact sheets, but we also do our own research. We have our own data scientists here. So we can also monitor our activities, how many electric cars are there in Germany, how many charging spots we have. And on the top here, you can also see that we have many points of contact where people can find the specific funding program for their needs. Now I want to give you a short overview. I have to come to an end, but a short overview of the status quo in Germany. How many electric cars are there? So here you see the new registrations of passenger cars, of battery electric, hybrid electric, and fuel cell electric vehicles. And we see the usual seasonal fluctuations. But we had a high in December, in the last 2 years, December 2020 and December 21. And this is because of the European fleet emission values. So during the year, car manufacturers have to meet a fleet emission target, which leads obviously to registrations in December because the car manufacturers have met their targets. So what happens in December is that many car manufacturers just register many electric cars on their own name or for their employees so that they reach the target. So I'm not proud of this peak because it's not my work. Well, actually it is, because we also work for fleet emission target policies. But yeah, this is, as I said before, it's a different instrument. It's a different pillar of the environmental instruments I showed you earlier. But yeah, in April we had a registration of around 45,000 electric cars. And yeah, as I said, right now we have 1.5 million electric cars on German roads, which leads to fleet size of battery size I'll show you in a minute. First of all, this is also one of the programs we have. It's not a funding program, but it's a tender for a nationwide demand-orientated and user-friendly fast charging network with 1,000 locations across Germany. So this is Germany. I don't like it that we don't see the whole of Europe, actually, because of course our mobility doesn't stop here in the border. Right now I'm in Berlin here, and of course I drive to Poland. But yeah, right now it stops at the border. And so this is a nationwide tender that we have, where the companies that would like to put a charging infrastructure can put in their bid, they can put in their vote to have a specific tender location for them. Lastly, my last two slides, these are a bit of fun stuff, I say, done by our data scientists. Here you can see the battery capacity on German roads. And you can see it's according to a car manufacturer. So we see that 4 big names divide half of the market between them. So of course it's Volkswagen, it's Renault with Zoe. Zoe is the most bought electric vehicle in the world. Tesla, of course, has one of the largest batteries in the market, and Hyundai. And the rest are other also big names, big car manufacturers, but they don't have such a huge offer in battery electric cars, or they offer cars with small battery sizes. And the average German drives around 40 kilometers a day. So we don't need this huge battery capacity for our daily mileage. Just a side note. And one last point I wanted to make to you, especially because we were talking about where to start with electric mobility. This is the battery capacity in our sectors. Again, sorry, German, but we see that, for example, energy, which is here, energy in green, dark green, this one here has a high capacity, so has many electric cars on the roads. And the light green one is industry. So the industry sector has many electric cars or has few electric cars with huge battery sizes. So this is the side note to that. So it's also important to look at these industry sectors you have in your economy where it makes sense to electrify the fleets. Okay, so this is my last slide. Inform yourself with our newsletter. It's in English. We also have many English-speaking events, and also have a look at our networks. We have many international networks where you could also participate. And yeah, thank you very much for your attention. I'm open to your questions now.
Thank you very much, Stefanie, for this interesting presentation and all the insights from Germany. We don't have any questions in the chat so far. Again, I encourage you all, if you have any question, to post them there. But as there's no questions so far, I would like to give the word to Ariel, who can tell us a bit more about the electric mobility in Uruguay and the developments there, and then ask you some specific questions, because I think we also have some Germans in the audience, so that might be interesting as well.
Perfect. So hello, everyone. Thank you, the German Chamber for this invitation and to participate in this presentation of Stefanie. Really, it was impressive. It was great, and a lot of areas where I think we have some coherence in the development that we are trying to do here in Uruguay. So we'd like to comment these things, and as it was asked to me, make some questions. You talk about it, but as Francisca was saying, there are also some international persons here in this. So I would like to remark that in Uruguay, electricity is being produced mainly by renewable energy. Every year we are between 90–98% of the energy produced here in Uruguay comes from solar, wind, and water, basically. So this part is already solved in Uruguay, talking about emissions, but also talking about energy independency, that is so important in these moments, and also talking about availability. So here in Uruguay, when we talk about the second transition, it is based on something that is so important for us, that energy is being produced in Uruguay with local costs, that we know which will be the cost of this energy based on local parameters, and as I said, available. Okay, because I always like to say that if one day we don't have water, sun, and wind, the problem will be another one. It's not only about energy. So this gives a stability in price and availability that is quite important. Based on that, our emissions in Uruguay are mostly 60–70% are based in transportation, and that's why all the energy policy, all the environmental policy are so important in this aspect. For that, we work in three axes that you mentioned, and that's why I was talking that there are a lot of things in common. We work in technologies and infrastructure, so the availability of to have the vehicles, electric vehicles here in Uruguay, and also to develop a charging net. I will explore that later. The other aspect are standards. We are working a lot in normatives and different type of standards to regulate all this, to give the whole frame of this development. And the third one, and maybe most important, capacitation and cultural change. For the first one I mentioned, Uruguay is one of the countries with lowest taxes to buy electric vehicles. Importation is for free. There are other taxes that are exonerated, specific taxes for vehicles. The electric vehicles don't pay that either. And we are also working, and this is part of the project that it was mentioned by Francisca, that I'm the coordinator, Project MOVES. That I would like to also to remember that this MOVES project was also created to promote all this efficient and sustainable mobility. It's a project that is based in 3 ministries: energy, environment, and housing, and it's implemented here by UNDP. And as I said, one of the axes that we are working on that is how we create this technological test that companies can test. You talk something that you are doing something like that. How companies see these vehicles, they can test them, they can use them, So we have a specific program on that, or that we can talk it later more specifically. We subsidize the renting of these electric vehicles for 1 month for any company. So any company in Uruguay can rent an electric vehicle and test it for 1 month for free. And we create this program and we subsidize it. Another thing that was created in Uruguay by 4 ministries is the vote of electric buses. Today in Uruguay we have 35 electric buses. Maybe it's not so much, but it was created to test them. And I think the most important part is that we are tracking all the operational parameters, consumptions, kilometers, all of that, and we are having a very nice experience on these buses. And we expect this year to create a new instrument, and this time to make it to something more stable. Let's call it like that. The ambition is to have like 100 electric buses every year to match the whole fleet of buses. I'm talking about urban and regional buses. Going from standards, because I don't want you to get so much minutes, but it's important. I think in this part, what it is more important is to talk about interoperability. Again, how should be the frame of development of all electric vehicles? Here we already the industry ministry where we work create a normative of the connecting points here. So in Uruguay today, any public or private company can install a charging point, and you can choose for free which type of connection you can use. Let's call it any standard that are available and have quality for sure. But in each point, you need to have one of the international connecting standards that is mostly used in Europe. Why we wanted that? Because from one side, we wanted not to create a barrier for the entrance, but also that that everyone will know which type of standard you will find in every charging point. And the one that was chosen is the international. So if you have one of these cars, you know that you can charge anywhere in Uruguay. But again, if you want to install a private charging point, okay, you will have to put one of these, but you can choose if you want to also put another charging standard. The other part that we are working a lot is in the batteries regulations, or how they will be treated from the use, second use, and how they will be recycled. So this is something very important, because with the electric vehicles, we wanted also to think from now which will happen with these batteries. And the third one in this area is not so much about electric vehicles, but about combustion vehicles, because we are also making regulations about labeling, about emissions regulation, things like that, because we also want to increase the standards of the combustion vehicles, knowing that also this is one of the ways to promote electric vehicles, but also using it to have every year better vehicles. And the last one, and I will be very short, is about cultural change and capacitation. And this is something that I always want to remember when I talk with German chamber, because this is something that was even demanded by them, saying, okay, we would like to bring electric vehicles in Uruguay, but we need to work in standards, and we also need to work in capacitation. This year, we actually with some funds with the IDD that they were accepted with. Actually, there are German funds to promote innovations in countries. We will have these funds to support the creation of an institute to train electric capabilities. No, so in this here we are working with the people that will work in obviously in the workshops to repair vehicles, but we are also working in safety aspects. Firemen and even medical things that people that will need to work in the when you have an electric vehicle. It's a whole change, and we need also to be prepared. So this institute it will be created here in Uruguay this year, and we are also very happy with this, because again we are working also a lot with the German chamber. So these three axes, I wanted to introduce them here in to let them know, and the question that can be one or can be a lot of questions in the same questions is okay, we heard a lot of things that you are working on this. And my first one will be more about capacitation, where you can see they can be some collaborations, and the second one will be also we saw the in the screen you were, I don't know how many standards and all. I think it's important to make people understand that to introduce this type of policies, you need to have a lot of standards, you need to have a lot of normative, you need to have a frame that is really robust to make these things happen, and happen in the good way. Electric vehicles, okay, they are electric vehicles, but they need to happen in the good way. So if you want capacitation standards, I think it will be a good way to talk about it. And for all the Germans that you are listening here, also remember, I always say to all the countries that I talk, that here in Uruguay, what we need is to receive electric vehicles, because all the electric vehicles that are arriving to Uruguay, and it is true, had been sold. We multiply by 4 the selling of electric vehicles in the last 3 years. Every year is multiplied by 4, and it's been stopped because we are not receiving all the electric vehicles that we would like to be introduced in Uruguay. So you have an opportunity here. So if you want for you, Stefanie, the 2 questions I mentioned, and for the German people, bring us all your Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, and all the vehicles that are electric vehicles. And when I'm talking about electric vehicles, I'm talking about 100% electric vehicles. This is mostly what we like to promote here. Okay, so thank you, and Stefanie, please.
Thank you, Ariel. That was really, really important also to hear your perspective on the topic. So about standardization and also education. So with the standardization, of course, we see the whole of Europe, and there are many standards already in place regarding plugs and chargers and battery safety. And but we are also still coordinating standards yet to come. So it's about communication protocols between the car and the charging infrastructure, the billing, and so on and so on. So there's so much more to do. Right now we have a discussion in Europe whether you need a credit card terminal at every charging station. So yeah. And the European mentality also differs. There's not the only one European mentality. It's the Germans are a bit like like they want to be on the safe side. They want to have standard before they implement it. And I've heard that the Austrians, they're just doers. They do it, and then later they implement the standard. But we have a certain size, so we cannot just do it. We have to agree on standards and then go from there. So yeah, but maybe as soon as we have the standards here set in Europe and the worldwide car manufacturers agree on that, then maybe it's a standard all over the world. Let's see. And regarding education, for me as an economist, this is the transformation process that we have seen in many industries. So we have seen a huge transformation of the coal mining industry in Europe in the last 30 years. And now we have to see the same change in the car manufacturing industry. And of course, the car manufacturers demand subsidies for re-educating their workers. But for my personal opinion, it's a transformation process that you see in many industries. So as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, you're responsible for bringing your company into the future, transforming your company, your production sites, so that you can produce in the next 30 years. And but of course, we have seen new study programs at German universities. You can now study electric mobility at the German university. So it's not it's partly engineering, but also how's it called? It's a mix of engineering and electrical engineering and electrical engineering and engineering, exactly. Yeah. So there are many things happening at the same time. But also interesting. I find it very interesting, and you have the green electricity, but no cars, and we have the cars, but not the green electricity. So we should come together somehow. By the way, also in Europe, you have to wait half a year for your car at the moment, because production capacities are in a huge backlog because of all the crises we have seen here, starting with an aluminium crisis and chip crisis, and now a different crisis. So yeah, maybe you can deal with it. Maybe if we drop subsidies, then and you have still subsidies in place in Uruguay, maybe car manufacturers will send more cars over to Uruguay. I hope for it.
Perfect. Thank you both very much. We received some questions in the chat. Jose Manuel Lestido asked about solid-state battery technology. And Stefanie, if you have some estimation when it will be in the market.
As far as I know, we have some production sites in Europe and Germany, and 1 or 2 bus manufacturers use solid-state batteries. I'm not sure about passenger vehicles right now. I don't know that off the top of my head, but yes, there is some. And we have more and more battery producing facilities in Germany and in Europe.
Perfect. And there's another very interesting question from Sebastian Hiraldes. He would like to know what the country, I guess Germany, is doing to lower emissions, not only in vehicles, but also in the previous step in the manufacturing process of those vehicles.
Yes, of course. We have funding programs for the circular production, circular environment. So it starts with production and until recycling. So we have recycling standards in place in Europe, where also the battery of the battery electric car has to be recycled or put into a second use its battery storage system. Yes, they are. It's divided between different ministries. So I'm not an expert to talk about circular environment, but they are in all kinds of processes, resourcing, reuse, remanufacturing, and also we have energy efficiency programs for factories and buildings, and this is energy efficiency of buildings. So they are in place, and there are also funding programs for this, and also educational programs. Yeah.
Francisca, if I can pop in this question, because I think it's really very, very, very important, but it is known Uruguay is not a big or not producer of vehicles. So what we are working here in Uruguay about that was I mentioned about the regulation of batteries. The idea is to take the most that we can from each part of the life of these batteries, and actually this regulation is based on circular economy, so that the vehicle, how can we test the battery of the vehicle to know exactly and in each moment which is the capability of this battery. So in this case you can extend the use of the battery. When this battery will not be good for a vehicle, it will remain some capacities. So again, from the test, from such some little reparation, sometimes you can even increase these capacities, and can be used in how do you say that, in static, not in a vehicle, but as a battery of electricity. And after that, what it is needed to be done to recycle and even afterward to put it in some place. So all this is being work in the environment ministry, and I think is very important. And the second thing that we are working, and we finish a study with Mobes is about retrofit of vehicles. So again, I mentioned it before, as we want to increase the electric vehicles in Uruguay. The second act the first one and the most simple will be to buy the electric vehicles, but the second one will be also to transform the actual combustion vehicles to electric vehicles. And we need to create also a regulation for this to maintain safety parameters and things like that. And this regulation also is being worked today in Uruguay, and I think it's also important to mention it.
Yeah, good point. The retrofitting. So what happens in Europe, or what happened, is that there used to be retrofitting of passenger vehicles, but not anymore. We don't fund it anymore because we want to create a new industry of pure, like, from the start, battery electric vehicles. So we don't support the retrofitting of passenger vehicles anymore, and only of heavy trucks and buses. But slowly this is also phasing out, because we create a new industry of production sites for battery electric passenger heavy duty vehicles and buses. But it's a good start. It's a good start to get started, to have it, to get it on the road. I always use this image of get it on the road. So yeah, it's a good start. And I also took note of your program that you can rent an electric car for a month for free. Wow, this is amazing. I will propose that to our government. We should do this. Yeah.
Good. Yes, just because we in the last minutes, all these programs, all these studies that we made, all these things, You can see them in the website of MOVES. Again, MOVES is a project that actually is ending this year, but we will be working for 5 years. And it's not us. MOVES integrate the work of 3 ministries that are working a lot in the promotion of electric mobility. So all the programs and initiatives and studies that have been made by us, I'm talking to the audience, can be found in the website, actually in English also, in the website of MOVES. And when you are talking about how we can exchange, also we needed to be mentioned that Uruguay is working a lot on hydrogen, and the ambition is also to have a test of production and use of hydrogen now. And the ambition is to develop the whole industry here in Uruguay of hydrogen to even to export. And there are some interaction with Germany. So maybe someday we're sending you some water and sun transforming in hydrogen. But again, it was a pleasure. I'm here if you have also some other questions, Francisco.
Actually, there's no any further questions, and we're about to reach the end of our webinar. So I'm thanking you all very much for your interest and for your participation. A special thanks to you, Stefanie and Ariel. Yeah, I wish you all a great day, and I think there's many more opportunities to exchange ideas, norms, policies in electromobility and also in hydrogen in the future. I'm sure we'll be planning another webinar about this very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.